Hello everyone, very good morning. Okay, some of the folks joined. Hey Sachin, Shrey, Shiva, Sunil. Somehow one of the participant is showing as Edureka guest. If you can edit that name, maybe I can address you by name, but I see Edureka guest. Not sure why. Probably you logged in with some other name. Okay. Am I audible? I've just shared my screen as well. Is my screen visible? Can I get some confirmation? Hello? Okay. Thank you, Sajin. I thought there is some network issue from my side, I thought. Hey, thank you. So you can see my screen, right? Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. So this will be sixth session for us. Let's wait for 2 minutes, 1 minute today. It's getting not now, man, not now. So what we covered yesterday? This was the pending piece from yesterday, I think. So which we'll cover today. I uploaded these notes as well, so you guys can try out. Okay, so that will start with today, and then we have a lot of things to cover today. Okay, so time is 7 a.m. Very good morning. Let me just start a counter for 1 minute. Let's wait for people to join, and then we'll get started. So today we'll be covering on the one pending piece from yesterday, and then we'll start with actual agenda which I had for today, and in that we'll be covering a lot of different connectivities. Okay, so till yesterday we have seen how we can create VPC, how they can, what are the limitations, I mean not limitations but the security perimeters, right? That one VM cannot talk to another VM from another VPC, how they connect to each other, how network isolation takes place and all those things, right? Different types, firewalls, all those were the fundamentals. How I mean those fundamentals or the basics of networking, how those are implemented in GCP. That's what we have seen with demos and different demos and walkthroughs, right? So today we'll be seeing different connectivity options between multiple VPCs, right? So I think we can get started. Just let me check my connect. Okay, looks like connectivity is fine from my side. Okay, let me log in also. Okay, so now the first topic that we will be covering is peering. Okay, so as the name suggests, what do you guys think? It will be a peering between multiple VPCs. So basically, let me put it this way. with a diagram. Some representation will do. This is, or better, not this way. We'll make it as one giant GCP environment. Okay. And then you have project, and then you have another project. Okay, project 1 and project 2, or this can be the same project also, but this can go beyond the project also, and this can go beyond the organ also. So we have VPC and we have another VPC. Okay, VPC 2, VPC 1. Now we have any resource here, right? Now I'm not going to create a subnet and all, but I'm just saying that there is a let's say there is a VM in this, and there is a VM instance in this one also. Now we know that by network isolation that we have discussed yesterday, right? So we have seen that any VMs or any resources that are outside the VPC perimeter cannot talk to each other. As long as they are in the same VPC, they can communicate. Of course, there is another VM, they can communicate with each other. But this particular VM cannot talk to this particular VM on the other side in another VPC, right? Because it is outside the perimeter. What if there is a requirement in your project that you're running multiple projects? In multiple projects means it's the same company, but you have different GCP projects. Both the teams are working separately, and you have a need to connect a resource from one VPC to the resource in another VPC, right? So if that is kind of a requirement that you have in your project, then VPC peering might help you, provided that it is within the GCP environment, right? You cannot connect to any other environment like AWS. One project is in AWS, another project is in GCP, or one project is in you have an entire on-premise infrastructure or something like that, then VPC peering will not work. VPC peering will only work in within GCP realm environment. Okay. So now there are a couple of facts for this. Okay. So the connectivity can be for or can be under same org or different org also. So doesn't always mean that for this particular project should belong to your org only, right? You know the rootmost node that we discuss about, right? So let's say xyz.com, right? So the project need not be just under the org, right? So this is not the restriction here. This project can belong to org1, and this project can belong to org2, a different org altogether. Those also can talk to each other using the VPC peering. Okay, so it can be under the same org, means under the same organization node you can have multiple projects talk to each other, or it can be a different organization node by itself, so that your projects and organization itself will be different. Those are not related to each other, not in I mean in from the infrastructure perspective, those are not still connected. It might happen that two different organizations share something, or they want to share something, then that is where VPC peering can help you to connect to each other's VPC, right? Now if you see here, there is one important point to notice which we will be discussing in the next topic, but just notice that this VPC belongs to this project and this VPC belongs to this project. Okay, so the ownership is the main point here. Just remember this point, right? So the ownership remains with that respective project, of course, because we create the VPC in that particular project, so the ownership remains with that particular project. For this VPC, the ownership remains with that project, this project 2, right? So I think that's how. So let's go in the console and just try this out. Okay, so let me we had this one, right? We were working on this one, my GCP networking. So if you go to the VPC page, VPC network, and let me go to the VPC networks. First of all, we'll have to create two different VPCs. Okay, so we do have, and this also can connect to different VPC. So basically, yesterday we had let's now let's one second. So let's break this one down. Yesterday we had, so for demo purpose, I'm telling you, this is our project, let's say, right? So let's take it out and let's play around in the same project also. So VPC peering, this connectivity can be within and also can be within the project, right? Within the same project we have multiple VPCs, right? So we can make them connect to each other. These two also we can make them connect to each other, right? So that is as equivalent as having, doesn't matter whether they are in the same project, they are in the same organization in different projects, or they are all together in a different organization itself. That is also possible. But just for the demo purposes, for the same project, there are two different VPCs, right? And we have seen the network isolation demo yesterday, that they are not able to communicate with each other. So let them talk to each other using VPC peering. So for that, there is an option here, VPC network peering. Let's go over there. Let me first see. So one second, let me just check. Do they have the firewall rules and everything? Otherwise, that will block us, right? I don't think VPC2 is needed. Let me just delete that one just to avoid the confusion. Okay, so now we have two VPCs. Will not be working with default one. We have auto VPC and we have a custom VPC. This has US Central one, and auto VPC has all those subnets. Okay, so now let's go to network peering, and let me just duplicate this. First, what we'll do is we'll create two different VMs in two different VPCs, and we'll see, just like yesterday we had seen, we'll see and confirm that they cannot talk to each other. So let's create virtual machine instance. And of course, I want these VMs to communicate on the private IP, right? So we'll create one instance each. Let's say VM on the auto VPC. Okay. Now in the network, I'll go to the network interfaces and I'll select the auto VPC. And this will take automatically the central one subnet. I don't want external IP. Done. Create. So this is the VM on the auto VPC. We'll create another one. Let's call it as custom VPC VM. Let's create on the subnet that we have. We have only one subnet. So under network interfaces, I'll just select this time custom VPC, and only one subnet we had on this one, right? So that is what we will select. We don't want external IP address again. So that's okay, and let's create. So now we have two VMs. One is in auto VPC, one VM in custom VPC. And let me just do an SSH into the auto VPC. And from here, so this is my VM in auto, and there's another VM which is getting created. That VM is in the custom, right? So let's try to hit from this machine to custom VPC machine using the private IP of the custom machine, right? So let me try to ping it. Okay, so this is my auto. So this is the IP address that I copied for the custom one, and let me try to ping this. The fact that they are in different VPCs itself, right? So they are out of each other's perimeter, of course. So they are not able to talk to each other. They are not able to communicate with each other right now. So as I said, on the VPC page, we had two VPCs, and if we make a peering between them, then we should be able to basically create a connection between them. So how do we create that connection? Okay, just let me, there is one diagram. Let me see up this one. Okay, I hope you can see the diagram. Is it clear, guys? Or is it blurry for you? Okay. Okay, so now if you see here, it is showing for the same organization, but it can have in a different organization also. That's okay. But these projects are different. We from a demo perspective, we are also doing in the same project, but the point is this VPC is different than this particular VPC, right? And these subnets, right? These the subnets are in their respective ones. So if we are making a peering, that seems to be a both way, right? In this diagram. So we have to create two peers. Okay, to create a one peering between two VPCs, you need to create two connections, basically like this. So this is one, this is two. So if you do this way, it will not work. You have to make from another other way around as well, and that is where your peering will get activated, right? So let's see that one as well. So let's say create a connection. So if you see here, couple of things that you have to say, let's say from custom to auto. Let's say I'll name it as anything. So custom to auto, this is one direction, then auto to custom will be another one. So here I have to select the VPC. My VPC is a custom VPC, right? And is it in the same project? Yes, it is in the same project. Otherwise, if I select another project, I'll have to give the project ID and then the VPC name from that project. So that means, see, this is a project ID, right? Project ID is globally unique within GCP, right? So that can connect to any project, be it in the same org or without, or in a different org, doesn't matter. As long as you give a proper project ID, it will try to connect to that project ID, right? So the one peering that I was showing on the diagram, right? So if they are in this, if they are in this different projects as shown in this in this particular diagram, this particular peering will appear in one project. This peering will appear in another project. Whereas in our project, it will be in our demo, it will be shown on the same no, console. Okay, so here we are creating between custom to auto. So we are selecting custom VPC, select in the same project, and I select the auto VPC. Okay, and then rest of the things can remain same. That's okay. And I am creating a peering from custom to auto. Okay. Now, if this has to work, right, I need to have a other way around as well. We need to have both ways, correct? If you have if you want to have a peering between two different projects, then this is only the work that you will do in this project, and then you will switch to other project and you will do the vice versa or the same thing from auto to custom in another project. But since our VPCs are in the same project, I'll be doing another peering connection in this particular project itself, right? Because my both VPCs are in the same project. Now, until and unless I do the peering both ways, this status will be inactive. Okay, so let's create another one. This time let's call it as auto to custom. So this will be my source and this will be my custom, will be my target, and let's create this one also. Okay, so now if everything is correctly configured, you see the status has been active for both. Doesn't matter on, it is only the fact that we have both the VPCs in the same project. That's why we have created peering, both the peerings in the same project. Otherwise, there'll be one peering here and one peering will be in another project. Okay, and as soon as you create that particular bridge, the both way bridge, right, then automatically there will be one active entry here and one active entry in the another project. I hope you got the point. Just for the demo, I have created both the VPC in the same project. Now let's try to ping or fire the same command. And now if you can see it, it is able to send the packets to the another party, the VM on the private IP, which is sitting in another VPC altogether. It is still able to communicate with that using the VPC peering. Okay. So any questions on VPC peering? Okay. So now the thing is, there's one point to remember here, and that will bring us to the next topic. So just, I think I have a diagram. Okay, let me check if I have a diagram, then I'll explain directly on the diagram. Yeah, I think I have. Fine. So, okay, perfect. So in this particular diagram, we'll see that the VPC peering is not transitive. Okay, okay, it is not transitive. This is point to be noted. If you see here, this is one VPC, this is another VPC. So there is a VPC peering happened here. So it will be like both way we'll create a connection over here, and these VM will be able to talk to each other on their private IP. That is what we have seen. So let's call it as A for simplicity, or we already have a nomenclature, right? So N2 and N1. So N1 can talk to N2, right? Now there is another VPC peering between N1 and N3. So N1 and N3 is also connected, right? So they have created both way connections here as well, right? So that's why this VM can talk to N2 VM or N1 VM also, right? But this does not mean that this is also true. No. So N2 cannot talk to N3 unless and until there is a separate peering created between N2 and N3. So that is what it says. It is not transitive. Okay, so A goes to B goes to C does not mean that A can go to C. Okay, it doesn't mean that in case of VPC peering. And that is what happens is, if you go beyond this, and now let's what about the ownership? The ownership remains with the same, the projects, right? Because I told you here, the ownership there, it remains with that project. So we are still on the peering only, Shiva. Okay, so now to the point that, let's say, we have seen three particular VPCs. This can talk to each other if there is a peering. This can talk to each other if there is a peering, but this cannot, right? So we have to create a separate peering. This is okay. But what if I have another VPC? I have created one more VPC, or I have already a VPC in another project. I want to connect a network of these VPCs together, right? And since it is not transitive, I'll have to create each pair with each of them, right? So just by adding this one VPC, one extra VPC, VPC4, I had to create this one, this one and this one as three new peerings. And when I say peering, it will be six bidirectional peers that I have to create, correct? So that will be a cumbersome activity, right? So that's the problem. So problem is VPC peering is not transitive, and if we keep on growing, or if we keep on adding more VPCs to our network, then if we have a need, if you have a requirement to connect to all those VPCs together, then it becomes a cumbersome activity, right? So that brings to the next topic, that is, one second, sometimes, okay. So that brings to the next topic called as shared VPC. Okay. Any questions on VPC pairing, guys? Let me meanwhile get the diagram. Then we'll pause for a minute and let me check if you have any doubts on VPC peering. Peering of the VPC which cannot communicate locally. Sorry, Shrey, I didn't understand your question. Can you please elaborate your question? Which cannot communicate. Peering the VPC? No, it is VPC is basically VPC peering is basically like a connection between two different VPCs, Shrey. But if your question is something else, please post it again. I'm not able to understand from the sentence. Shabby says yesterday there was 35 subnets. No, no, this is the old project that I have, and now it is showing 36. So it keeps on, basically it they keep on doing a lot of stuff, right? So it's still maybe it is. I think yesterday we were working in another project, but yeah, I have seen that kind of issue. It's not an issue, basically. They keep on pushing some of the region, um, or maybe if I get the list of those 35 somehow, then I'll find out which one was the extra one. But nothing to worry from that perspective. Is there any increase? Yeah, yeah, I'll check that, Shabby. I also noticed that. Rajendra, what permissions needed for pairing? You don't need any, I mean, as long as you have VPC creation permission, you will be able to do the VPC pairing as well. Okay. So you need VPC, we need to, so you can go to the IAM and check for the VPC, and then you can check what are the permissions required for creating the VPC network itself, and the same permissions would also be letting you do the VPC peering also. What about the ownership that I already answered? The ownership remains, since the VPCs are different here, right? So the VPCs are separate to those projects, right? Those projects are, I mean, this particular VPC in this VPC is in another project, so the ownership remains in that project. If both the VPCs are in the same project, the ownership of the VPC remains in the that particular one project only, right? This was the answer to your question. Answer. Okay, 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 Shrey, thank you. So, so the next topic is the shared VPC. So there are a couple of points we'll have to first understand. So the the need of shared VPC that we already discussed. The need was VPC peering. Of course, these are not exactly the um, same solutions for previous one's problem. Shared VPC is not the exact solution of the problem that we were discussing in VPC pairing, but it solves the major issue that VPC pairing has. So VPC pairing, okay, not this. So VPC pairing was non-transitive, right? So that's why we had to create a lot of peers. So that's where we'll have shared VPC. So let's do one thing. Let's also understand how it is different, right? So that will be easy to understand. So VPC peering and shared VPC. So as we said, right, can be in same project, can be in same org, can be in different org itself, right? So the VPC peering can take place at any point. It, as we have seen in the demo, we have done everything in the same project. That is also possible. We can have VPCs in same organization but in different projects. That is also possible. And we can have VPC peering between two VPCs belonging to different organization node itself, right? So that is also possible. But in shared VPC has to be in the same org node. So basically, your organization node has to be the same. You can have multiple projects, they can share the VPC, but the organization node should be same. It can only work under the same org node. Okay, this is one-to-one approach, right? We are creating a peer between two VPCs at given point of time, right? And this is a centralized approach. This is a centralized approach. Okay. I'll come to all these points, but just hear me out on this particular differentiation and then we will discuss each of those points. So here we don't need a org node is not required. Org node is required because it can only work in the same org node. Okay, if you don't have an organization node like we have in free tier account, so we cannot do the shared VPC demo on the free tier account. But since I have my own, organization node as well in another account, I'll show you from there. Okay. Then VPCs are separately present, right? We have seen the ownership, right? Those are separately present in their different projects, or those are actually different VPCs altogether, right? We are just making them peer to each other. Here in shared VPC, there is something called as host project. Host project has VPC and service projects uses the same VPC. Okay, we'll come to this point. This is the most important point of having shared VPC. Okay, again, this is not transitive, so it will be non-transitive. Yeah, so it will be like up here we have to create every time between two different VPCs. Here anyone can talk to anyone else. What do I mean by that? Let's say if I have a shared VPC, we'll see how this can be converted into a shared VPC. But once we have that all the VPC under shared VPC, any machine can talk to anyone else. Okay, so you don't have to be like this, right? Since this machine N2 machine cannot talk to N3 machine unless and until we create a peering. So that way in share, but on the other side in shared VPC, once we have everything under the same shared VPC, anyone can talk to anyone else. Okay, resource sharing is not there. Okay, so here subnet is shared with service projects. So if you paid attention for all these points, you must have understood what I am trying to come up with, or you might have understood by now already how the shared VPC will work. So now coming back to our diagram, how a shared VPC works is, okay, forget about this particular part, but shared VPC only works in GCP realm. Okay, that's the first point. The next point is there is a project here. Okay, then there is this project, and then there is this project, and then there is this project. So let's call it as S1, S2, and S3. and let's call it as H or H1. Okay, so this H1 is called as host project, and S1, S2, S3s are called as service project. Okay, and this is called as host. So in host project, I have a VPC. Okay, forget about I have another VM or whatever it is. That is what we will be trying out later on. But for just understanding of how a shared VPC is structured, just understand this way that the host project has a VPC. Okay, this is the VPC of the host project. Then what we do is we attach the service projects to this. Okay, we attach this one to this, we attach this one to this. The as many as we want, we can attach the service projects to the host project. What happens is we do not need a VPC here. We don't need a VPC. We can have our own VPC in S1 also, but we don't need to. Okay, so it's basically a one to many kind of approach. Okay, basically the host can connect to multiple service projects, and service projects uses the VPC of the host projects. Okay, so that's what the entire shared VPC architecture looks like. So if we have seen, so for that we need to have a org node. Okay, then it's a centralized approach that only one of the project, which is a host project, has the VPC, right? Org node is required, host project has the VPC, and service projects uses the VPC, the same VPC, right? They can of course, again, point to be noted that they can create their own VPC also. Okay, so anyone can talk to anyone else. So right now, as everyone is in the same shared VPC, now S1 and S2 can also communicate, S2 and S3 also can communicate, S1 and H1 also can communicate. Okay, and the subnets are shared. So what happens is when we are sharing the VPC, automatically the subnets that you create in this particular centralized host project, automatically those are visible to S1, S2, and S3, whatever service projects you attach, right? So now to do all these things, there is one IAM role that is required, and we are doing this at the org level, right? We need an org node, right? So that means somebody at the org level has to have that permission. That role is called as shared VPC admin. Okay, so somebody in your organization has to be a shared VPC admin. This permission has to be given to that particular person, and this person can create shared VPC in host project, correct? Then he can attach service projects to the host, right? These are the two important things that he can do. He can also manage the firewall rules on the VPC of host, VPC of host, and on service projects also, if there are any firewall rules, he can also manage the firewall rules on the service projects also. Okay. Um, what else? I think, yeah, that is enough for that particular role. These are the some of the things that we require for shared VPC. Okay. Okay. So let's go to this one. Okay, don't need. Okay, so let me just delete the peering. Let me delete these VMs also. Okay, so now let me sign out from here. Let me log into my org, I mean my personal GCP console, the other project where I have the org node, right? And let's select the org node. Okay. Fine. So now let's go to IAM first, right? I used this particular account only for this particular demo most of the times because I said, right, 95% of the demos will be possible on free tier account, but not this one, right? So for this, we need a organization level IAM permission for this particular user. This particular user, if you see here, I have made him compute shared VPC admin. This is the role, exact role that is needed to create a shared VPC, right? So this particular person has a shared VPC admin role. Okay. So since we have that particular role now, so we have to go and select the project. So now, where do we create the VPC? We create the VPC in host project, right? So let's go to the host project. Let me duplicate this and let me show you one important thing on the service project right now. So what I have done here is, let me show you the project structure also. Okay, so I have created one host project. Okay, I have created a service project. Okay, I have deleted, I keep on using this particular two projects for every batch, so I have deleted all those existing shared VPC and everything. Let me show you that as well. One second. If I go to VPC, shared VPC, right? For now we don't have any shared VPC setup, right? And here, if these are the two projects, shared with sorry, the host project and the service project. What we'll be doing is, in the host project we'll be creating a shared VPC, and in the service project we'll be using it, right? So if I go to service project for now and go to VM instances, let me go to the VM instances. Okay, so now I'm in the service project, and if I try to create the instance. Okay, so guys, let's do this way. I want you guys to be little more interactive. So if I ask you any questions, I want some answers on the chat. Okay. So what do you think? Let's say we are creating this particular VM in the service project. What is the option that I'll get? You remember, you might be already aware about now that in networking, I keep on selecting the network, right? I keep on selecting the VPC here, right? So what are the options if I drop it down? What options do I see here? What do you think? What is that visibility that I will get? Okay, will it be able to fetch any other projects VPCs? Let me service VPC. Service, there is no VPC called as service VPC. Oh, service VPC, perfect. So this is the service VPC that we had created yesterday, I suppose, right? So we have only two options, VPC service and a default one. These two VPCs that we have in this particular project, the service project, right? Let's just confirm. Samshare says host and client. No, we have not yet created any shared VPCs. So this is showing these two entries from the same project. Okay. So this is showing the entries from the same projects. So it is, if we are trying to create a instance, VM instance in this particular project, it can only use its own VPCs right now, right? So as I said on the diagram, right, this S1 can have its own VPC also. The service VPC that we are talking about is the same thing. It is basically having the its own VPC, a default which is comes with along with this project, and the VPC of its own. Okay, so let's take a snapshot if possible. Okay, so for this particular one, I'm just taking a screenshot over here and let it be here. Okay, fine. So I don't see any other VPC other than these two. Okay, because these two are, of course, it will be visible because those are in the same project. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a VPC in the host project. So let's go to another tab. I have host project here, and I have this account who is a compute shared VPC admin. So let's try to set up the VPC now. Can you first show the connect, how to connect service project and host project? For that, I have to first create a VPC. I'm not going to attach these projects directly, right? So that is a part of this particular demo. We are not yet connecting the host and service. Okay. So it's a part of this entire setup itself that will connect these two projects. Those are still not connected to each other. So shared VPC, just save and continue. This is the project ID of the host project. Okay, valid earth. Okay, let's wait for that to complete. Now we have two options. Either I can broadcast all the subnets, or I can create individual subnets. So first of all, one more thing I wanted to check was on the VPC networks of the host project. Let me change the project also from here. First of all, let me check whether do we have any. Okay, we have VPC host. Okay, let's delete everything and then we'll create. One second. I don't want to confuse you guys. So in the host project, I have only default VPC. This is getting deleted. In the service project also, let's delete that service one. We don't need that actually, because we are not going to use service one. Or since we have taken the screenshot, let it be there. That's fine. Okay. So in service project, we have one VPC, and in host project also we'll create one VPC now. So here, now we have only default one. Successfully deleted. Let's create one. Let's call it as host VPC and custom. Then let's give it a name, host VPC subnet central one, let's say. Okay, let's give it some name. Let me just check. Let me just double check. It should not conflict with my host. It should not conflict with my service projects VPC range, right? Because we are going to share them. So once again, okay, this IP range should not be conflicting. Okay, that's fine. Can make it bigger also, that's fine. Then I can select all of the firewall rules and then let's say create. So what I'm doing here is now I'm creating this particular host VPC. I mean the VPC under my host project. Okay, that's what we are creating. So it's getting created, host VPC. Our intention is when we create a VM in a service project, I should be able to use this one, right? When I create a VM here in service project, I should be able to use the VPC perimeter of my host. Okay, that's my final goal. Okay, so okay, looks like it is created. Okay, so now our setup is, let's start with the setup now. So my left one is my host project where I'm going to create the shared VPC. Let's go to shared VPC. Let me delete this one. This was we left it in the middle, right? So let me just delete and start it from the scratch. Okay, so now let's start. So set up the shared VPC in the host project. Yes, this is the host project. Fine. Save and continue. Then on the next screen, that what we had seen was we'll have to either select all the subnets or we can select the individual subnets, right? So if you see here, the default subnets are also being shown, and there is one subnet that we had created, right? A custom VPC and a custom subnet in that, right? So let's select that one, and our intention is to just share that, right? Share that particular subnet. And now if you see here, we have options to attach the project. So which project do you want to attach? We want to attach service project. That was the question. From this host project, we are attaching we can select multiple projects also, right? S1, S3, S1, S2, S3, and this step we can do later also. If there is another new projects coming in, which is still not there right now, so it will not show up here, right? So we can attach that project later also. Okay. And then we have a couple of options who can do on this, who can work on this particular shared VPC, who can use it. Okay. And then let's say save. This will create a shared VPC. So meanwhile, let me check the questions. VPC peering is like defining routing, some share. No, no, some share. VPC peering and routing is different. VPC routing is by default, GCP will all automatically create a routing for you. But VPC peering is like, it's like a connection between two VPCs. Okay. But you're not defining anything. Everything else will be taken care. You're not defining the routes and all. Only peered ones and local ones. Can you first? Only peered ones and local ones. Peered ones, you can't see the peered ones. You cannot see once if you are doing. Okay, 1 second. Let me refresh this page. Okay, if you are doing this peering, right? This particular peering is done. If I create a VM, I will not be able to create a VM using this VPC. The ownership of this VPC is with this project. I can only create, in case of peering, the VM can only be created in this VPC. But here in the shared VPC, I can create a VM here in S1 by using the VPC of H1. Okay, so that's the difference. So I'll not, at any point of time, I will not be on this particular which I have taken a screenshot, right? On the VM creation page, I will not be able to see my peered VPC anytime. It's not even possible. Okay. When we creating, okay, just hold on for that question. So I think select a project, host project. We should have the setup now. Okay. So if you see here, attached projects, you haven't attached any projects. Okay, let's attach one. I think I had selected one project to attach. Okay, so I'm just selecting the service project, and was it not something happened in between? That's why my even browser was stuck. But this is how I can attach at later point of time also, and I can select which subnet I want to share, right? So I attached one project, one service project with this shared VPC. It is showing up here, right? And I can detach the project also. I can select and detach the project from here, right? And about the information about the shared VPC, this is my host project, right? And it is sharing this particular subnet, okay, and shared with 3 users. So this is based on the IAM basically, who can use this, right? So this is coming up from my IAM page, who has the permissions to use this subnet, right? And that's it. So now this particular host, the setup is complete. Okay, so the host has a VPC now, and now we need to see, and it is also attached to S1, let's say, right? So now from S1's VM creation page, we should be able to see this particular VPC, which is on the host, which is not even on the S1, right? So now tell me, what should I see here? What should I see here? Or basically in this area. So you can try to answer. Now I'm on service project. I have two VPCs of my own, okay, but I have one shared from the host. So shared VPC, correct. The host VPC, right, Siva? So that's the correct answer. So if I try to create a VM instance here, and I'm not interested in these things, but just if you see here under interfaces, if I expand this, now there is a little slight change in the page, right? If you see here, network interfaces, earlier there was only one option drop down, but now I can see networks shared with me from this particular host project, right? So in this project, I can still see those two, but I have another option, and I can select the VPC of my host, okay, and the default also. So basically the default will come automatically, but you can also share the custom VPC from host project to your service project. Now this is a service project, and I can use this particular subnet. I can say private none, I don't want, and I can say this is my VM service in my service project, let's say, right? And let's okay. So that's how you will create a VM. Okay, now let's create another VM in my host project. VM host. Again, a small machine I'm selecting. I'm selecting the small machine just in case if I forget, right, to bring it down. It will not cost me much. So that's my intention. So here I have, because this is the host project, so I can only select the host project over here, and let's say none, done, and create. So so there is one VM in host project and another VM in the service project. But essentially, if you understand this part clearly, this S1 VM is also created in the same boundary of this particular VPC. So basically, we have created the VMs, even though the VM will be charged on S1 project, but VM's perimeter is considered as the perimeter of this particular VPC, right? The host VPC. That's why in what you can say uh, in a networking terms, they both belong to the same VPC and the same boundary, right? So of course they should be able to talk to each other. So let's try that out. I just created a SSH connection with the host, okay, and let me go to the service project. Let me copy the IP address of that VM, private IP of that, and let's see. Let's try to ping from host to service. Vice versa should also be possible. Let me try to ping this and see. I'm able to communicate between the two VMs, which are in the different projects, but they share the same VPC, right? So that's all about the shared VPC. Any questions? So let me know any questions. If any questions there. I'll clean this up later. Um, any questions, guys? Else we'll start with the hybrid connectivity, or maybe we'll start after the break. That's fine. No more questions? Snigdha, okay. Sorry, I missed your question. When we are creating a host and service VPC, that just a name or a different feature also when we are creating a host? No, that's just a name. In your real project world, it will be some other meaningful name. Name can be anything, right? So that's basically the networking team or your architect has to decide what naming conventions they have to follow. Every project will have different naming convention just for simplicity, and you know, for you guys this will be a new concept, so I'm just keeping the nomenclature in that particular way. I think we are giving them host service features when setting up the shared VPC. No, we are selecting them because uh, the project names that I have given was also host and service. Just I renamed or I use that particular nomenclature for the projects also, so that you guys can grab it fast, that I am going to host project, I am going to service project. In your case, it can be a different names, right? It can be your project related name also can be there, right? So just for the simplicity of the demo, I'm just keeping the namings as this one. So this name of the project, name of the VPCs, name of the VMs doesn't matter. Okay, as long as you follow the same steps that I followed, you should be able to set up the shared VPC. Shrikda, does that answer your question? Shrey has another question. Peer VPC can be set up between a VPC and a private cloud. No, peering of VPC and shared VPC both. That's what I'm coming to. Now we are going to talk about hybrid, right? So the point that we have discussed, shared VPC and peering VPC, those both work only within GCP. Okay, peering works within GCP. It can be between the different orgs and different projects also, but in shared VPC this also has to be in the GCP, but it always be under the same org between the different projects, but it is also within the GCP. Now since we are saying hybrid connectivity, this is between on-premise to your cloud, GCP cloud, Google cloud. Okay, so this is what we are going to cover next. So let's take a 6 minutes break. Okay, and then we'll start with the hybrid connectivity. Just a point, there's a point that there are a lot of things to cover. Either we'll have to go a little faster, or we'll have to stretch a little, maybe 15-20 minutes today. Okay, so so let's take a break and be back in 5.5 minutes. Okay, see you guys. Okay, I am back. So if any questions, guys, just shoot. We have 2 minutes. I can try to address them. Okay. So I think the break is over. Let's resume. So for hybrid connectivity, okay. So for hybrid connectivity means something other than Google Cloud, right? So in most of the cases, it will be on premise or it can be cloud to cloud also. But majorly we'll be seeing on premise. And for the demos, I'll not, I mean, I don't have that many of bugs on my pocket, of course, that I can set up my own on-premise infrastructure, right? So for demo purposes, we will be using another Google Cloud project itself, and we will call it as on-premise, and we will call another project as a Google Cloud project, and then we will try to make that connectivity, right? So there are multiple ways how you connect your on-premise with your on-prem. I will call it as on-prem now onwards. So how do you connect your on-prem infrastructure to your GCP infrastructure, right? So one of them is a VPN. The first one is what we're talking about is VPN. Now you must have heard about this particular word VPN, right? Virtual private network and all. Maybe there are a lot of ads where you see, okay, download our VPN, download this VPN, that VPN, right? So you might have also seen some of your friends who are from, let's say, in US there are some websites where you can only stream it within US. It cannot be accessible outside the US boundary, right? Same can happen with other countries also. They have certain limitations on that particular content, let's say, right? And that's where, um, if you might have seen this kind of scenario, right? Once we install some VPN, and then we get to stream those contents, right? So what is happening behind the scene when you install a VPN? What does it really happens, right? So first of all, let's understand that particular piece. So what is VPN? VPN is basically a mechanism, or what we can say, a tool, right, to connect different environments to each other. Okay, now for us it is on-premise and GCP. These are two different environments for us. We can connect to each other. It uses something called as tunneling. You might have heard about this name in your projects. I'm not sure, but this is very common networking, concept that using tunneling, you basically allow to connect one particular machine, allows one, not just one, but it allows a machine to connect to a network, or it can allow one network to connect to another one, right? It cannot be just a machine, it can be network or a machine. So basically it you helps you to create a tunneling between two different networks. How does that happen? It uses the gateway to connect, or to establish, or I'm sorry, to connect to, uses gateway to connect or configure the tunneling. Okay, so we use gateways to configure the tunneling. Okay, so what happens essentially is VPN is nothing but your, by the name it says, right, it is virtual private network. So what happens is, just in a diagrammatical way, if I tell you, this is how it will happen in our case is, this is on-prem. Okay, this is some infrastructure, and this is GCP, this is also infrastructure. So what happens is, we create a gateway here. Okay, this, let's call it as gateway 1, and let's call it as gateway 2. Okay, they are connected to each other, I mean each other's respective gateways, but these gateways are connected to each other. Okay, now this is called as one tunnel. Okay, this is, or let me be more specific, like this one, this is this is one tunnel, it's both directional. Similarly, I can create one more tunnel. Okay, this is tunnel 1 and 2, so two tunnels. So this will be like a high availability tunnel. So if one of the tunnel breaks down, then we still have another connection to bring our, I mean, keep our traffic going between the connection going between two different networks. If it is just one, then it is called a single tunnel VPN. This is HA, high availability tunnel VPN. So there are these two types of VPN connectivity between on-premise and GCP. We can have single tunnel VPN, or we can have HA VPN also. Okay, so in HA VPN we will have two tunnels, each tunnel. Now you understood that single VPN will have one tunnel, HA VPN will have multiple tunnel, two tunnels. One tunnel, if there is, for talking about one tunnel, it will be like a peering, right? We do this way and this way. Okay, so there will be one connection from this gateway to this gateway, and another connection from this gateway to this gateway, and it uses a protocol called as BGP. Okay, border gateway protocol. It uses a protocol for making this connection or making this session. It is called a session. So it creates a BGP session between a tunnel. One tunnel is made up of two BGP sessions. Similarly, if you have two tunnels, if you have a HA VPN, okay, if you create a HA VPN, then totally you will have four BGP sessions. That means two tunnels. Okay, I hope this much is clear from the VPN perspective. And what will happen is, when we say virtual private network, those who don't understand anything about networking, in a just layman term, what we do is we create, this is on-prem, this is on-prem, and this is GCP. We create this VPN connection. So what happens is, this GCP or this VPN understands each other, like they are in the same network, same private network. Just that, you also, I mean, now everyone is working from home. Most of the people are working from home. How do they connect to their office related tools or portals, right? They have VPN, office VPN. They connect to their VPN, and once you connect to the office VPN, your machine just works like it is there on the LAN of your company, right? So it's basically, even though you are remotely working, you are somewhere else, you are on another network, you are not even connected to the LAN of your company, right? Still, it creates an environment called as virtual private network in such a way that you get access to that particular service of your company portal, or in this case a GCP, right? So you bring your on-premise in such a way in the same private network that GCP and on-prem will be able to communicate with each other, right? That's all about the VPN from the conceptual perspective. So now let's jump on to the demo. For that, I don't need this. Okay. Uh, so this can be done with your free to your account. So let's do it there. Um, Yes, give me one more minute. Let me know. Just delete those because that's my paid account. That VM will cost me. Okay. Goes the host one. Let's go to VM instances. This is just I'm cleaning up the demo that we had about shared VPC. So don't get confused. I'm just cleaning this up so that I don't get charged for this one. So it is deleting. That's okay. In service project also I had one. So I'll delete this also. Okay. Then in the host project. Okay. So in the host project, I'll just shared VPC. So you can also just take a look how we can detach and all. So we can go to attached project, select this and detach this. Okay. Is it done? Okay. Detaching failed because it is being used. This particular shared VPC is being used by the VM, right? The service VM one. We'll have to wait for service VM to go down. Okay, it's deleted. Let me retry. Okay, so now it is removed. Okay, I don't see any attached project. I can disable the uh, shared VPC from my host project itself. Okay, so that's about how you clean the shared VPC and its related resources. This should be your, daily practice that whenever you try out your practice demos or anything, you should just clean whatever you know create or anything, so that you don't get charged unnecessarily. Let me just refresh this one now. Okay, okay, we are in our free tier account. Now where were we? So we want to create a connection between on-premise and GCP, right? So for that, let me show you one second. So what I have done is, in my project setting, if you don't have any projects, you can create two more projects. Let's say let's call one as on-premise, another one as GCP. Okay, and then let's go to one project, GCP project. Let me duplicate this window and create on-premise also. So I have one architectural diagram. Let's discuss that once. Okay, so that you will get little more idea about what we are going to see in the demo. Okay. Can copy this. Can I create this? Paste it here. Yep. This will be easy. Okay. So, okay. So now if you see here in this particular diagram, this talks about a classic VPN. Classic VPN is nothing but your single tunnel, single tunnel VPN. Okay. And another one is the HA VPN. So there is only one single minor change, okay, in the setup for between the classic and VPN, classic and HA VPN. Okay, that we will see, but just understand the architecture of VPN basically. So here there is one on-premise network and there is this cloud GCP, GCP project, right, infrastructure that we have for our GCP project. Now we want to connect our on-premise data center to GCP project, right? So what we can do, if you see here, this is my VPC. First of all, I have a VPC here. Under that VPC, there are some routing tables. There is some VPC router. Okay. Then there is a gateway that we discussed, right? It is a gateway. Similarly, on the on-premise also, this is your network, and that network has a gateway, and these gateway are talking to each other via this line, right? And VPN always traverse via the public internet, okay, but it is in an encrypted format. Okay, it goes the once this connection is established from on-prem to uh, GCP, and from GCP to on-prem, you can basically talk on the private IP. You can communicate using the private IP, but that traffic flows via internet in an encrypted form. Okay, so the traffic flows via internet, public internet, but it is in the encrypted form, and you can access these VMs. The VM can access this VM, and this VM can access this particular VM to each other using their private IP. Okay, so this will happen on private IP, but the traffic which will go will be in an encrypted format on the internet. Okay, so for that connection you need a gateway. Okay, you need gateways, and this gateway will require one external IP address. Similarly, on the on-premise also you will need a gateway, and that will also need one external IP address. Okay, so two external IP address in case of classic VPN, and this entire setup is called as one tunnel. Okay, this entire setup is called as one tunnel. Now as we said, for HA VPN we need two tunnels, right? So similarly, there will be two connections from here to here, right? For that, you will need four external IPs, right? Two for one tunnel, right? So the another two for the another tunnel, the second tunnel, right? That's the only difference. The advantage that you get with the HA VPN is that you get more availability, so that if one of the link is broken, still your connectivity will be in place. It's not that your entire network is the connectivity has gone down. It will not happen if you have a HAVPN. That's what even Google recommends you to go for, the HAVPN. Okay, now there's one more diagram that I was actually having here, is about the this one, BGP session, right? This is the same diagram that we discussed just above here, just in another way. Okay, so what happens here is you have certain subnets. Okay, just ignore this for now. Similarly, on your on-premise, this is your on-premise. So you have certain subnets, and just ignore this one for now. Okay, so what happens is, in your VPC, you have two subnets. Here you have 1 to 29. Ignore the 31, 30, 30th one. Then what happens is, you have a gateway, and for that gateway you have a connection between the peer gateway. Peer gateway means on-premise gateway in this case, and this is nothing but a tunnel. Okay, and it says a dynamic routing, right? We'll come to this. So what happens is, for this particular tunnel, we need a BGP session, and this BGP session will require a router, which will all of these things will create in our demo. Using this router, this router will work on the link local address. This is again one, there is one, you remember RFC 1918, right? Similarly, routers are also having some IP address range, okay, reserved for them. So it will look like 169.254.0.0 or x.x, let's say, right? So these values you can change, but you have to use this series only. Okay, and that's how you will create one tunnel. Similarly, in HAVPN, you will create one more tunnel. Okay, and that will be again one BGP session one. This is BGP session 2, right? So let's see HAVPN. Okay, so let's try to create the HAVPN in real time in project. Now, one more point is, once this particular setup is done, and then if you add any of the new subnets on any of the other side VPC, this particular router will broadcast. If you have a dynamic routing, then this particular subnet will be visible to this guy. The routes will be visible. They will not be able to create the VMs from here. You cannot create it on this particular, but they will be able to communicate, because for communication, we have seen, right, between two VMs, if you want to communicate, the firewall rule is important, but routes are also important, right? So this particular VM traffic will go to a router, and this router on GCP side should know, okay, there is a route I need to take, which can lead me to this particular VM2, right? So this router should be in sync, right? So this router should be able to communicate and broadcast this newly added subnets on each of the side, right? So that was the point. So with dynamic routing, this will also be taken care in your in your environment or in your architecture. Okay, so let's see that. Now this also we have to create on both the side. We have to create one VPN tunnel, gateways, routers on each side. So that's why what I have done is, I have created two tabs here. One is showing GCP, one is showing on-premise. Okay, the project name is editable, right? You can change anytime. So that's why I just renamed I created two projects, with one with GCP project, another one is on-premise. Okay, so now let me go to the okay, one second. Now what we can do is, this is one project, Just keep an eye on where we're working, right? So GCP, one tab is GCP project, another one is on-premise. So then let's go to hybrid connectivity. Okay, this is all about hybrid connectivity. So let me pin this so that it will appear over here. Did I unpin it? One second. Okay, I unpinned it, I think. So if I see here, there is an option in under hybrid connectivity, VPN. Let's go to that and create a VPN connection. Now, if you see here, we have two options. And if you see here, the difference between them is between the gateway, you have one tunnel in classic VPN, two tunnels in HA VPN. So let's do HA VPN. Okay. So first of all is first task that from the diagram, we are going to, let me try to copy the diagram. Okay, the clean diagram. Okay. Now, first of all, we'll create this particular gateway on the both the sides. Okay. So let's call it as GCP VPC VPN. First of all, let me first see the, let me, one second, give me 1 minute. Let me just go and check the VPCs first in these projects. Because if I don't have anything, okay, I don't have. So first of all, let's set up some subnets. Okay, these subnets we'll set up first. Okay, so let's create a VPC for that. Let me call it as GCP VPC. Custom is fine. GCP VPC, and let me call it anything. Name can be anything. Just subnet one. I'm going to create that in, let's say, US Central 1, and IP range 10.1.1.0/24. Then let me create one more, GCP VPC subnet 2, and this I'll create in some other region. This time it should be some other range. Fine. Then all firewall rules fine, and create. Similarly, on the on-premise side also, we'll create one VPC. Let's go to VPC. Let me just check whether okay, I don't have any other VPC. So let's call it as on-prem VPC. Custom fine. On-prem VPC subnet 1. Let's again create this in Central 1. And let's give it some other naming convention like in diagram, right? We had 1.0. As long as they are non colliding with each other, invalid. Oh, there's extra dot here. Fine, all four firewalls create. So, okay, I think here I had seen somewhere. Okay, fine. So we have created two different VPCs in two different projects. Okay, but don't consider this as a this one as a GCP project. Just imagine this has to be your on-premise infrastructure. Okay, So that's how we just assume that the on-premise, we don't have our on-premise infrastructure, right? So, but in your project level, if you are setting up this same thing, it will be your on-premise where you will be doing this stuff. But I'm doing it parallelly on this GCP console only because I'm assuming that my on-premise is just working as a on-premise infrastructure, my on-premise project I have instead of that. Okay, so don't get confused on that particular point. It's very important. Then now let's go to uh, let's create one VM also in each project. Okay, so in GCP project I'm creating one instance. Let's call it as GCP VPC VM, and we'll create in one of the subnet which we have. We have your central one. Networking, not the default we want, or VPC. We don't want external IP address. Create. Here also on premise, I am setting up one machine. Okay, I have only one VM, I think, in this one. I have only one subnet, sorry. So yeah, so that I'm going to use. I think we don't need external. We don't need external IP as well. So okay. Now from by this time this okay, so this GCP VM is up. So let's open login into that, and let's try to connect to on-prem VPC. Since it is in a different project, or in just assume that it is in on-premise, it is no longer reachable anyways, right? So let's try to ping the private IP just to make it sure that it's not reachable. Okay, so it's not reachable. It's not reachable from my GCP project to my on-premise infrastructure. These VMs are not able to talk to each other. The vice versa will also work the same way. From on-premise also will not be able to ping to my GCP VM. Okay. Now this is where our actual setup will start. So if I go to hybrid connectivity and go to VPN on both the side, I'll have to set up these VPN connection. Now for in your real use case for on-premise, real setup for on-premise, you will not be using GCP console. You will be using your on-premise setup, some physical setup you will have to set up using your networking team. Of course, if you have a on-premise infrastructure, we will have a networking team. They will have to set up all these things physically. Okay, but on cloud, we are doing it in this way, right? So I'm going to select HA VPN, and now, as I said on this particular diagram, we are going to create a gateway first, right? So let's name it as a gateway VPN gateway. Then we are going to select our VPC and region. We'll have to put this particular gateway in a region. Okay, we'll have to put this particular gateway in a region. But However, it will still be able to route traffic for all the subnets. That's okay, but it has to be in the same VPC, but we have to keep it in some region. So that's why I'm just selecting one region. Okay, I already have two regions in this VPC, right? So I'm just selecting US Central one, and then IP4 and 7 continue. So this will create one gateway on one side. Similarly, I need to create another gateway on the on-premise side. So for that, I'll name it as on-prem VPC VPN gateway. This is for my this is the VPN for my on-premise VPC, right? So that's why I'm just giving a name like that. Name can be anything, of course. On this side also, I have one subnet on US Central, right? So I'm just selecting that, save and continue. Now switching back to GCP. Now the gateway has been created. Now it is trying to ask for the tunnels, right? And there will be two tunnels, right? So for each tunnel, it will use some interface. So one tunnel will use one interface, and another tunnel, so one tunnel will use two interfaces, and this is for the gateway, right? So here, now you have to select the on-premise, whether you are connecting to real on-premise or AWS or Azure or any other non-Google Cloud environment, then you select this one. In our case, we are connecting to another Google Cloud project only, right? So that's why I'm selecting this one, and I can select on-premise here, right? So I'm going to connect to this from this particular GCP project. I'm going to connect to on-premise. So if you see here, I am able to fetch the gateway of the on-premise. So that's why I selected that. Switching back to on-premise, here also I can say I am connecting to GCP. Let's see, GCP VPN gateway. Okay. Now coming back to the GCP project, now there is an option whether you want to create a single tunnel or you want to create a pair of tunnel. So since we are creating a high availability tunnel, we are VPN, then we are going for a pair. Okay, and routing option will be BGP. Okay, similarly here also you can select this. By default it suggests this one. So for having this routing, you need to create a router. So the next one is to have a router in place. Okay, so here I can directly create a router from here itself. Okay, GCP VPC router. This is my router on the GCP side, and routers has some ASN. Okay, some it's like some giving a number, Google ASN number. Okay, so it's like a number given to a particular um your router. Okay, so that these routers numbers should not clash. Okay, so it can range from 0 to 65,000. Some value is there. I'll have to check that. Okay, but you can give something like this also. Okay, so let's give this as a ASN number. So this number gets tagged to your router. Okay, so the routers should be able to talk to each other, right? So they will use the ASN number of each other to talk to each other. Okay, so just remember this number. For the GCP one, we have 65,001. Okay, let's create. Similarly, let's create one router on the other side. This is my on-prem VPC router, and for this one I'll give 65,002. Okay, and this is like keep alive interval. So BGP session that we are going to configure in a while, that will try to make a connection and they will try to send the signals to each other. Okay, so that way, that keep alive interval will be 20 seconds. Okay, now the router is done on premise and BGP side, sorry, GCP project side, right? So now we'll have to So these interfaces are automatically generated. Okay, that's fine. These are the two interfaces. Okay. Now we have to configure these two tunnels. So this is the one tunnel, and then there is another tunnel not yet configured. Similarly, there'll be this tunnel and that tunnel, second tunnel, right? So on the GCP side, tunnel number one will have to give it a name. So GCP VPC tunnel set in tunnel 0. Okay, tunnel 0 and tunnel 1, that would be the name we'll give. Then IKey version, right? So this is basically a protocol again, which is being used for two tunnels to communicate with each other. It's like when you pair two different phones together, right? Some kind of pairing keys or something is asked by your phones between the connection, right? So it is that kind of pairing key that you need to share. Okay, so we are going to use this particular version, the second version, the latest version of iKey, and I need to share some, either I can generate and copy some random key, or I can give 1111 or something like that, 0000 1 2 3 4, anything is fine. Just that on the other side, when you set up it on the other side, you will have to give the same pre-shared key so that they match, and then then that is approved, right? So that's how this one setup is done. Similarly, I'll have to create and given another name for another tunnel. We are creating two tunnels, right? So tunnel 0 and tunnel 1. Here also I am going to give the same one, and I say continue. Similarly here on the on-premise side, I am going to give on-prem VPC tunnel 0, and the same key that was shared from tunnel 0 of GCP 1 2 3 4. That was the key was given, right? And another tunnel on-premise VPC tunnel 1 1 2 3 4. Okay, let's say create. So now the tunnels are also there. These two tunnels are talking to each other, but they will not be able to communicate. They're trying to communicate with each other, but they will not be able to communicate with each other unless and until we configure the BGP session. That's why it is asking us to configure the BGP session. So for now, to make this particular connection, we have the tunnels, we have everything, but this BGP session is not in place. So for this, we'll have to set up the BGP session. So for BGP session, as I said, right, it will be uh, A to B, then B to A, then A1 to B1, and B1 to A1, right? The four things we have to configure. So this is, let's say, A to B. So accordingly, what should be the name? We should be using BGP to on-prem, right? This is GCP. So this is the BGP session that we are creating for on-prem, right? And this is happening for tunnel 0. Let's say, right? This is happening for tunnel 0. So let's give it some name like this. Now it is asking for peer ASN. You remember we gave a number 65,001 and 65,002. So it is asking the ASN number of the other router, right? On the on-premise router. So it was 2, I think, right? This is the on-premise router ASN. Okay. Then just leave this value as it is. Allocate IP address manually. Okay. Now you remember I showed you one format that we'll have to follow, right? So let me just give a number, sorry, IP address, and then I'll tell you how to configure this. So as I said, we'll need 4 external IP addresses, right? For this, making this connection, 2 tunnels, 4 BGP sessions, right? So we'll need 4 external IP addresses. So what will happen is, um, okay, 1 second. Not this one, the BGP session that we are talking about, right? So BGP session will be like, let's say if you see here, right, 169.254 1.1, and on the other side 169.254 1.2. Now when you configure here, you'll have to also give the peer gateway or the peer, I mean, of course we are using the routers only, but in this diagram we don't see a router over here because it's actually a non GCP in this particular diagram. In our case, we'll have to create router on both the sides. That's why this IP address is with our router. Okay, so we'll have to give the IP address of the peer also. So that's what I am giving over here: 169.254.0.2. Okay, this is for one pair, and since in this particular diagram it's a classic VPN, it is just a one pair it is showing: 1.1, 1.2. In our case it is 0.1, 0.2, and another one will take as 1.1 and 1.2. Okay, I hope this point is clear. We have to give a router IP address of this particular setup and a peer router's IP address on of the tunnel 0. Okay, so that's how one BGP session is complete. We'll configure another one, or first we'll configure the counterpart of this particular one. Okay, so we'll go to this on premise and configure this BGP session. Guys, I understand this will be little confusing, but just pay attention. Now from here, I'm creating for to GCP, right? This is my on premise. So BGP to GCP, what we can say, tunnel 0, right? Here the peer will be GCP, so this will be 001. And this time I'll have to give the reverse of that: 0.2 and 169.254.0.1. Okay, because here we had given the reverse of this, right? So here now my IP address, I mean on premise IP address will be 0.2, and the peer for this will be a GCP IP address, that is 0.1. Okay, let's save this. Similarly, let's configure the tunnel 1 now. In tunnel 1, let's give it one more name: GCP, sorry, BGP2. This is going to on-prem, and this is for tunnel 1, 65002. This is the peer ASN on-premise one, and now manually 169.254.1.1. 169 must be a valid one, sorry. 169.254.1.2, and the same, the reverse of that I will configure on the other side. Okay, so let's go to the on-premise and configure the other part of that: BGP to GCP, and this is for tunnel 1. 65001 was the ASN for the GCP one. Manually, and I'll give the reverse of that here: 254.1.2, and who is the peer? 169.254.1.1. That's it. So you have configured all the 4 BGP sessions, right? Let's save both of them. Okay, so if you see here, the BGP session is established. So let's say okay, and let's check the other side. Here also it is saying established. The first handshake is yet to be done. So let's say okay. Okay, so session status is also established. This is good. Similarly, we'll see on the other side, the session status is established. So that means the BGP sessions are also taken care, and between the two tunnels, and we have two tunnels now, right? So if I accidentally delete or something gets broken on one tunnel, the second tunnel will have my connectivity between my GCP and on premise. Okay, so now let's try. connecting that same VM from uh, both the side. Let me go to VM instances and let me SSH again. So I'm logging into GCP VM, and on the on-premise VM, let me copy the IP address. Now let's ping this. And now we are able to have a communication between two VMs. Those are in a different projects, right? But those are connected via HA VPN, right? Not the classic VPN. Those are connected via HA VPN. Even if I break, or even if I delete one of the tunnel, it will still be able to communicate. These two will be able to communicate via the other tunnel that we have, right? We have two tunnels right now. So I mean, this will not be the case in your real time, that so nobody will be able to delete it, right? But in case something is broken down or something is gone down, that is where you have that option of HAVPN, and that is what Google recommends. Okay. Any questions on this demo? I understand this is very confusing. So if you want to practice, just have to practice using, let's say, keep this particular recording side by side, and then you can try it out. If you have any doubts, you can let me know. So that's all about the VPN connectivity that we can create between two, means like on-premise versus GCP, right? Or it can be other cloud and GCP. Okay. So any questions on VPN? The next topic that we'll be discussing after this, let's take a break now. And after the break, we'll be talking about another option, cloud interconnect. So we have 1 hour to discuss cloud interconnect peering, uh, not the VPC peering, but cloud peering. So any questions on this? So I see Gantasala asking, is any coding will be there in GCP? So since we are just focusing on networking Gantasala right now, it will not be coding. Okay, I can create all these demos using the gcloud commands also, but that will be harder to understand. So coding means we'll not be doing sitting and doing the coding, but yes, in different modules, I'll be sharing my code. I have already shown. I'm not sure whether you were available from the first session or not, but let me show you quickly that I can share this right away with all you guys. Okay, so go to this. Just confirm, did you get my link? I just pasted the link and broadcasted to you guys. So I have given my GitHub repo. You can go to this and try out different demos. But since we are not reached there yet, we have a lot of demos to cover, and a lot of these like cloud functions, cloud SQLs, cloud shell, Dockers, deployment manager, all of them will have different codes. App engine, all will have the coding, but I will not be sitting and writing the code. Just to answer your question, Gantasala, will not be writing the code, but yes, there will be a lot of coding involved in the subsequent respective modules. Okay, but networking doesn't require any coding, so right now we can't do any coding here. Router, nothing but the gateway. It's a part of gateway, you can say. A gateway, to communicate with another gateway, it always requires a router. And router is basically to tell you what are the routes available. Okay, so that's a part of your gateway itself. Yes. Okay. No more questions. Either this was very confusing, or you understood everything. That's why there are no questions, it seems. Very confusing. Okay. So that's why I understand. And this happens with everyone, not just with this one, our batch, but as there are a lot of pieces to connect when you set up the VPN. From GCP perspective, there will be only one thing that you'll have to set up on the one side. The rest of the other one that we have seen on the on-prem project, that will happen on the actual on-prem infrastructure. But since we don't have that, we had to do side by side. But yeah, yeah, you guys need to practice. That's what I've been telling you. So let's take a break for 5 minutes, okay? And then resume back with the other options to connect to on-premise. Okay, see you then. Okay, I'm back. Okay. So Gana has a question. Is it possible for you to provide step-by-step instructions for this setup? Um, so okay, that reminds me one more thing. Okay, I have attached. Okay, let's not show it up there. I have attached in your batch. I have attached one zip file. Okay, I hope you will have attached one here now in the student notes. Yeah. So I have attached one zip file. Okay, in your batch, you'll be able to see that on the first bubble. So that has two PDF documents. Okay. So the better thing that you can do, we can do, Gana, as you are asking for some steps, right, for these demo. For this demo, what I can say is, if you want to do it on the console, you just have to check my recording and do it parallelly. But there is another way that we can do this using gcloud commands. Okay, so for this, if you want to do a VPN BGP demo using Cloud Shell, you can just open this particular PDF, okay, which I have attached already, and you can simply follow these commands. Okay, so that will be like a homework for you guys. Okay, so you don't need any org, so you can do it in your project. Just rename your projects, or doesn't matter, just change this project ID. Okay, just consider one of the project as a cloud project, another project as your um, on-prem project, right? One is cloud and one is on-prem, right? So just change your project IDs everywhere and fire these commands. Okay, so that also I have, I think, simplified. Yes, so what I have done is I have create, so that this will create a variable called as cloud project ID. Just change it this what single place, because I have used the same variable everywhere. If you see here, dollar this and dollar this, you don't need to change every command. So rest of the things are taken care. So what are we doing here is, if I just take you walk through quickly, then you are creating a VPC. That's what we have done. Then we created a two subnets in this particular first VPC. We added four firewall rules. So what happens is, in gcloud command you have to create these separately, but on the console we have done everything on the same page, right? So these are the four firewall rules. Then similarly on premise also, we created one VPC, one subnet, four firewall rules, and then we created a separate VM, in one in cloud, one in on-prem, right? And then we tried SSH, right? It should not work, right? That's what we have seen. And then we started with the setup of this. So you have all these options. So create a gateway, create a gateway on on-prem, create a gateway on cloud, right? So you can fire, since you must have created this by this time, you must have created these variables, cloud project ID and uh, where is the other one? The on-prem project ID. You don't need to switch. You just go to the Cloud Shell and fire these commands. So automatically, based on the command that we are firing, right? It has a cloud project ID. It has a project on-prem project ID. So these commands just fire, and you don't need to switch between the projects as you do in the console. On the Cloud Shell, this will automatically be taken care. So just fire these commands and just understand. So okay, so here I'm creating a VPN on this project. Here I'm creating an on-prem gateway on on-prem project, right? Similarly, then okay, so here, if you want to view the details, this is optional. This will print the details on the console, your Cloud Shell. This is optional, just to check the the output of your commands. Then you create routers, then some stuff about, some information about the IKEY protocol, right? Internet key protocol. And then you create a peering between those two using the tunnel 0, tunnel 1, similarly tunnel 0 from this that to this, right? Vice versa. So like that, and then you create a interface, and this is a BGP session that you create. So all these things are mentioned in this particular document. So if you want to try out, you can try out using gcloud commands also. But again, this will be difficult for me to write down the steps for the consoles. Okay. Yeah, better. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, guys. So you can finally you can delete in this way also using the same gcloud commands. You can delete these resources also. So I have kept everything in this particular document. So follow that one. Okay, and I think there is another PDF where I have given the screenshots also. So at the end of the that particular gcloud commands, you should be able to see something like this. Okay, so just read out these things I just created for you guys. Okay, so good that you reminded, and I have already uploaded this zip yesterday itself. Okay, so I think yep. But for those who want to do it from the console, just follow the recording. Okay. So now let's come back to our topic for cloud interconnect, right? So VPN has some limitations. That's where you need some other solution, right? So what are those limitations of the VPN? We can say limitations, but these can be characteristics also. These might not be limitations for all of them, right? So first of all is just give me a minute. Okay, so the first thing is the speed. Okay, so with VPN, you can go from up to 5 Gbps speed that you can get. So if you want, if you are okay with this much bandwidth, speed, not speed, we should be using bandwidth. This is a better word. So if your requirement of the bandwidth is okay, that you can, if you have a proper networking in place, right, and your network supports that, but still the VPN can only be used if you up to the bandwidth of 5 Gbps. Okay, if your requirement is more than that, then VPN may not be a possible solution for your on-prem to GCP connection, right? That is one limitation that for with VPN that you will get, right, about the bandwidth. Another one is you do the traffic. Okay, the traffic flows via public internet. Okay, so we have seen, right, it is using the internet to send that particular traffic, even though we are able to communicate using the private IP of the VMs, but the traffic which is being, okay, if you send some packets from this machine to this machine on the other side, or vice versa, the traffic, the packet will flow via public internet, even though it is encrypted, but it is still on the internet. Okay, it will still go via internet, it's not using any private line. Okay, so if that is not what you want, then VPN is again not for you. Okay, so and the pricing is not just the limitation, basically we should say feature. So pricing will be the lowest in case of VPN. Okay, so if these things are, I'm sorry, okay, if these things does not suit your particular requirement for your connect hybrid connectivity, then you have another option, something called as interconnect, or something called as cloud interconnect. Okay, so here the connection between on-prem and GCP will be using private network. Okay, not using public internet. Okay, that is one thing. Bandwidth, will be up to 200 Gbps. Minimum is 10 Gbps. Okay, minimum is 10 Gbps to 200 Gbps it supports. Okay, so and you do not want to use public SaaS products. Okay, so the limitation again, there is this requirement that you're not going to use SaaS products like Gmail or YouTube or stuff like that. Then you can go for this because it's not going to use public internet, right? So you can't use the SaaS products of let's say Google Suite, right? So but your bandwidth requirement is very high and you are ready to pay more than VPN, right? It is not just little more, but it is very expensive solution. But if that is your requirement, that you are not ready to go, you're not okay with having encrypted traffic going on the internet, and you want a complete private line with the bandwidth up to 200 Gbps between your on-premise and your GCP, then you have this solution. So there are two types. One is called as dedicated. We'll see there's differences. Dedicated interconnect, and another one is called as partner interconnect. Okay, so what is dedicated interconnect? Let me take one diagram. I think we have a diagram there. Yeah, this one. Okay. uh, okay, is it visible properly? Okay, so so this is about dedicated interconnect. Let's talk about this once. Okay, so what happens here is, if you see here now, you have a on-premise network, you have a GCP that you want to connect with each other, right? And of course we are discussing interconnect because your VPN features that you get with the VPN, that is not enough for you. You want a better bandwidth, you are ready to pay more, right? But for dedicated interconnect, there is one, you see this one, right? Co-location facility, that is a must have, what I can say, item for your connectivity. So what is co-location facility? So co-location facility is, Google has these facilities at different locations. Okay, those are called as co-location facility. Okay, those are some actual locations of the Google, and those are located at different locations throughout the world. If you're on premise, okay, if you're on premise, see, if you see here this dotted one, right? So basically you are sharing that co-location facility with Google. So this part is Google, this part is on-prem, right? So you are sharing this particular thing, this facility with them. So if you can take this particular route, okay, your on-premise infrastructure should be in the same location where co-location facility is available. Okay, what does this mean? So Google has already a list of co-location facilities. If your on-premise infrastructure is also in the same city, then you can use dedicated interconnect. Okay, so what you are basically doing here is, in this co-location facility, they already have this particular infrastructure in place. Now what they do is, once you set up, there is a form that you need to set up, fill up and submit an order. Then Google will connect with you that on that particular order ID that they will connect with you, and then they will help you out to set up these things. So what you need to do is you need to have all those equipments. You need to go to this co-location facility. You need to have a dedicated team to have to work directly at co-location facility of Google, and you have to set these things up with help of Google between your on-premise router and the edge location, I mean the co-location facility of GCP. Okay, so that communication has to be set up manually with the help of Google employees. They will help you set up all these things at this co-location facility. And from here to here, this will be again another, I mean, this is your premise anyways, because this is on the same location. The provided the fact that you have your on-premise infrastructure in the same location or in the same city, you can say, right? Then only you can avail this particular facility, right? So dedicated interconnect is possible only when you have this your infrastructure and Google's co-location facility in the same city, right? Then only this is possible. So basically they have a peering edge exposed, and you need to create a connection between your peering edge and your on-premise router or gateway, right? Using the same way, right? So that setup has to be done between co-location facility and your facility, and that only can be done if that is in the same region again. And I mean I'm repeating. So that's the dedicated interconnect. Okay, so let's try that out. How does it seem? Okay, so it is in hybrid connectivity. Let's go to interconnect. Okay, get started. So here you can see, right, the dedicated interconnect. Let's continue with that. I'm not going to create this order, of course, because it will create an order ID, and then they'll get in touch with me and all. And you also need an organization details also, right? So you need to own an organization, and then only you can set up these things. Order a new dedicated connection. Let's say, let's continue this and let's see what all details that we need. Okay, so let's give some name. That's fine. Location. So you'll have to choose a location. So these are the co-location facilities where they have their peering edge available. Okay, so these are all the list you can select. You can even go here. So if you see here, if I talk about in the locations in India, right? So let's say Delhi is there, right? On Delhi, it is using the co-location facility of this one, but until here you have to make the connection, right? So you'll have to have in Delhi, Hyderabad, maybe Mumbai, Bangalore. There'll be all these cities. You can check that out. Okay, but basically with dedicated interconnect, you Google has taken care up to this part. At this co-location facility, they are taking care, and you have to be on the same city to have this particular connection, right? And then just select any of them. That's fine. Let me select Mumbai and this one, Tata Mumbai. And if you see here the capacity, it can go from 10 GB, then Gbps to 20, then it will use 3 into 4 into and like that. And then you can also use 100 Gbps line, and you can go up to 2 into 100 Gbps, that is 200 Gbps. That is the maximum capacity that you can go with, right? So depending upon, let's say, depending upon the capacity, this costing will increase. This is way expensive solution. Okay, so if I go with the basic one, go to next. If you see here, it is also creating a kind of a high availability interconnect connection both ways. If you don't want, we can, I think we can unselect this, and it will be half of the cost. Okay, so if you select this, it will be double the cost. Again, this will create another one, right? So basically, you can select multiple ones, and then you can go next, temp one, next. And then I need to fill up the company details, some contacts from my company. And what happens is they will create one agreement with you, Google will connect with you, and they will sign one agreement that is called as this one. Uh, Let me check. I think I have. What does this means? It says letter of authorization and connecting facility assignment. Okay, letter of authorization and connecting facility assignment. That is what this says. This is a kind of an agreement between you and Google. I mean your company and Google about this particular dedicated interconnect connection, and then they will provide you all the support end to end from Google to GCP to your on-premise. All that connectivity they will take care from end to end. Okay, so that's all about the dedicated interconnect option. We had another option, right? The partner interconnect, and you see the difference in this one is partner network. Okay, so think let's discuss that using another diagram, this one, and let's see the difference. Partner interconnect. Okay, so what if your company is located at such a location where there is no co-location facility, right? So co-location facility is not there at your city, but you have a on-premise infrastructure on that particular location, right? But you still want to have, you don't want to go for VPN, right? And you cannot go for the dedicated because you're not located at the co-location facility locations, right? So that's where you can use the service provider. So now there is a partner in the between. Okay, it's just like the service providers like Airtel, Tata, right? All these service providers are there, which works as a middle agent here, right? So what you need to do is the same way, right? You directly created a connection between Google's peering edge and your router, right? So now you create a connection from your router to just the service provider's peering edge, right? And Google peering edge will connect to a service provider another edge, okay, at this co-location facility. Okay, so these major service providers that we are talking about, they already have this much connection is already taken care. Okay, they have this particular setup with Google, right? And from your side, you need to take care of this particular part. You need to work with service provider now. Since you're not located at co-location facility, you need to work with service provider instead of Google. You will be working with service providers here, and you will be making the connection between their edge. Now on the other side, they have another peering edge which is already connected to Google, I mean GCP, correct? So it's like if your infrastructure is at, let's say Bhopal, right? That's one of the city, right? And you don't have GCP co-location facility, but you want to connect your on-premise to your GCP, right? So what you can do, you can use, let's say, Geo, Reliance, or Tata, let's say, right? Tata was there. So we can connect. This is already taken care by Tata, that they have a co-location facility here. Tata also has a co-location, not co-location, but they also have their own private network on at Bhopal, right? So what you can do is you can make a connection request to Tata that I want a direct connection with your peering edge, and Tata, since it is on the same network, right? This is automatically taken care by Tata, right? I hope this part is clear. This is how a typical partner interconnect looks like. But again, since there is a involvement of a middleman over here, you don't get the support for end to end. The support that you get is only from GCP to your co-location facility from Google side, not co-location facility, but the service provider. From service provider to your on-prem, that you need to take up with service provider separately, right? If there is any issues in your network and all those things, your service provider will help you on that. Google will not come in picture in that way, right? And since a service provider is there as a middle one, and you have a lot of things, you have a lot of equipments to set up, and they will charge from their perspective also, this will be the highest from the cost perspective, it will cost you the highest. So if I want to put that in a, let's do this way. Let's put it in a table so that it will be easy for understanding the difference of all these solutions that we discussed so far. Okay, so let me say type will be VPN. Then we said dedicated interconnect, and we said partner interconnect. Then we have partner interconnect, right? So the bandwidth, first of all, the bandwidth, right? It will be up to 5 Gbps. Here it will be up to 10 Gbps to 200 Gbps, and this will be again little lesser, right? Because it's not a direct between you and Google, right? So it will be 50 Mbps to 50 Gbps. If your speed bandwidth requirement is this is okay for you, then you can go for that. Provided that you don't have a co-location facility as well, then you can go for partner interconnect. And let's say provision, how we create a provision for these things. So for how do we do VPN provision? We need on-premise and GCP VPN gateways, right? We create gateways between them and we connect them. Here we have to be in co-location facility. We have to be in co-location facility. We have to deploy a team in co-location facility to work from there. And here we use service provider. Okay. Then communication. How do we communicate? Use the internal IPs, but using encrypted traffic on internet. Okay, but whereas in interconnect, this will be private line. This will be again private line. Okay. SLA, it will be like for your whatever the cloud perimeter that you have. Until that only they will support you. In dedicated interconnect, you will get end-to-end support. Whereas in partner interconnect, it will be between Google to service provider. That much support they will give you. If there is any issue between service provider connection to your on-premise connection, you will have to take up with service provider. And finally, the pricing, right? So this is the lowest, this is higher, and this is highest, right? It's because the partner is also involved in this. So this is all about the differentiation between these options that we have for hybrid connectivity. Okay. Any questions until here? Is it possible for you to provide? Okay, that is done. This is bit of zone, we can say. Sorry, Shiva, I didn't get you. If that was related to this, or was it related to some earlier discussion? Ignore got the clarity. Okay, thank you. So that is all about the interconnect. I hope you guys getting what we are discussing, or this is confusing, still confusing. Any questions, guys? I see very less people are interacting, and I mean, basically, I got one more feedback that be little inclusive or interactive. That's why I'm asking you, but I'm not getting responses. So either you are not paying attention, or it is not, we are not getting this. Okay. So what does it say? We have IPv6 now. What is sorry, I didn't get your question, but in the session we are using IPv4 address only. No, because I'm using it, IPv4 doesn't mean that IPv6 is not supported, but IPv6 working with IPv6 will be little different, and not all of the people are from the networking backgrounds. They will not be able to relate that. So that's why I'm not using IPv6. I'll be using IPv4 because 90% of the public or the participants will understand the IP addresses in that way. So that's why we are using that IPv4. But you can try out using IPv6 also. It's not that I'll be doing all the stuff, right? You can, when you try it on your practice demos, you guys can try out those things also. Okay. So there was one more feedback actually for the homework, right? So I know, I'm not sure whether you joined on the same day or not, right? Or the first day or not, right? Because when I set up my ground rules and the context, right, I told you that for the homework, if you go to the, we don't have that open, is it? When you go to the Edureka, your batch, right? Every session will have the assignments. So that assignment is nothing but your homework, basically, right? So if you go to the batches, right? I'll take just 1 or 2 minutes because I just wanted to talk about that as well. So there are, if you go to this batch and you go to the course content, these are there are 1 or 2 assignments per bubble. If you go to networking, here also you see 2 assignments. These are nothing but your homeworks, right? And that's what I already clarified in the first session that we started, right? So and on top of that, we are already covering every topic with different demos that you can consider as your practice homework, right? Because if you do that during the session, it will be confusing. That's why I request you guys to pay attention to what I do, and you try that the same thing on your home in your in your free tier account. So that also you can consider if you do this assignments, and or if you just try what I do in a practice demo and then you appear for this particular, try to answer this particular assignments practically, that that will be enough for you to understand any topic. Okay, I understand, Aman, today was a little bit complex, yes. And it's not just with you guys, it happens with every batch because setting up the VPN connection, hybrid connectivity itself is not simple. Okay, so you know, don't take it up that okay, it is very confusing and all, but just you need to practice. Okay, and for practicing these, you need to have your basics clear. So that's why I keep on saying you need to practice. Okay, so yeah, you can let me know in the next sessions also if you have any doubts. So I'm there for you guys. Then now, since we discussed that this goes on the private network and we do not want to use any SaaS products, but there is another uh, option called as cloud peering. It's not VPC peering. Don't confuse that with VPC peering. We have something called as cloud peering. It's being used very rarely, and I don't find that on the Google console also anywhere that you can create. But uh, I know that you can create a cloud pairing, and also there are a couple of questions being asked on the um, examination or the certification perspective. So I just wanted to talk about that as well. So cloud peering is basically, there are two flavors. Uh, sorry, two flavors similar to the interconnect that we had, dedicated and partner, right? Here also it is called as direct peering and carrier peering. Okay, just very similar to using direct connection and using a service provider, we are creating a connection. Okay, so it's basically suited, it's whom it is suitable for, right? So suitable for, let's say you have a company. Okay, let me write it down because you won't find that out anywhere on the Google console or anything. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say you have a company, okay, and you are making videos. Initially, you started by your own, started making, let's say vlogs or anything like that. And then with the time your contents increased, your channel grew, right? And then you started making more videos, right? And you started expanding your team also. So you have started like small, and then now it is expanded. Okay, you're creating YouTube videos, let's say, right? YouTube videos, and you post very frequently. So now, as your channel grew bigger, your team is expanded as well. Now, since the team is expanded, you are creating more videos. You are creating more, contents. Okay, so the bigger, or you can say the contents creation is more now. Okay, so in such case, now you need a higher bandwidth, right? You have more contents to upload to, let's say, YouTube, or I'm just giving an example of YouTube, but it's not has to be a same. It doesn't have to be the same application. You can use it can be anything else also, right? But my point is, you need more bandwidth now, okay, to connect to SaaS products, and you need to have public internet connectivity. I mean, not need to have, but this is you are okay to have public internet connectivity for this data transfer, right? So that's where you go for something like peering. Okay, so basically you are using peering connection of Google to do all these high bandwidth data transfers. Okay, so for that, you, as I said, right, you can have a peering request with Google. Okay, so you will not be able to find out here. Let me think, it is peering.google.com. Okay, so you can go to this particular website and see how it works. Okay, then you can somewhere you have uh, options, yeah, and then you can submit your peering request. Okay, so what is this? Is a direct interconnection between Google's network and your network. Okay, so your network and Google's network, you can exchange the traffic. Okay, and it's basically for higher bandwidth that you can get. If you go for a higher bandwidth just by increasing this internet speed, that won't help, right? So there's another option that if you are using the Google products and you want higher bandwidth, and you are okay to have your traffic going from the internet, okay, not just by the private IP, right? It can go via public internet, that is okay for you, then peering, cloud peering is an option for you. Okay, so now here you need to provide your organization details and contact details and stuff like that, and then basically submit that particular form, and then Google will connect with you for your requirements. And you need to have, just like we had understood in case of VPN, right? We need a router, we need an ASN number and all. So that ASN number that you have for your infrastructure, right? You will have your infrastructure which you want to connect, so to your Google network. So you will have to have your ASN number. You have to register that ASN number with the peering DB. Okay, so I think where is the link for that? Okay, let me check. Peering DB. Yes, and just search whether it is available. Let me think, I have that link. Okay, got it. Let's see if we can land up from somewhere. Yeah, peering DB, right? So you can go from here also. So if you see here, uh, 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 yeah, so ASN record needs to be completed in peering DB. So you have to register your ASN number in this DB. Okay, so networks, where is that? Okay, so you have to register your ASN number here. Then only you will be able to. I mean, you just need to follow the steps that Google will, guide you through, and then you will have the peering in place. So basically, there are some prerequisites. It's rarely being used, but I have seen some couple of questions on direct and career pairing. Just conceptually, you need to know. Okay, so direct pairing is like directly your dedicated peering that you do with Google Cloud. One second, if I have that. Yeah. Nope, nope, nope. This. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have any diagram or anything for that. But direct pairing is just like you're making a direct connection with Google Cloud, and career pairing is like you can use a middleman service provider to make that pairing for you. So that's all about this pairing option is also there. Any other any questions that you have on any topics that we discussed today about hybrid connectivity, about VPC pairing, about shared VPC, dedicated interconnect VPN? Just post it. Otherwise, I mean, you can ask me questions later also in the next sessions also. But this will be it for today. Next session will be again on networking only, but in next session we'll be focusing on load balancers. The part of networking itself. So we'll be talking about CDN, Cloud Armor, load balancer. There are multiple load balancers. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll be also what we'll be creating is we'll be creating a simple website, and we'll create uh, different DOS attacks also, and then we will see how the load balancer automatically adjusts the VMs underlying, right? In the backend, we'll create multiple VMs also. How to create multiple identical VMs using instance templates, that also we'll see. So that will be a good session, and on all these topics on the networking side. Okay, and that in the next session we'll also conclude the networking module itself, right? So we have taken 3 sessions on networking, and I'll be covering networking in details, because if any one of you also wants to go for networking certification, I think 80% of, at least I can be sure that 80-85% of the syllabus I'll be covering in that. Okay, and from architectural perspective also networking is very important. So from this course perspective, networking is uh, crux of that. Okay, I see one question. If we create one VPC with my ID and other VPC using, let's say, Aman's ID, can those be connected? Yes, Shrey, we can do that. Yes, you can do that. So since your organizations also are different, you can do that. Peering you can do. Shared VPC you cannot share those, but you can make them connected using VPC peering. Okay. Any other questions? Or I'll give you back 10 minutes from today's time. And I understand, don't worry, I understand the demos are little confusing on the hybrid connectivity, but I would request you guys to, try out. Otherwise, you'll not be able to make sense. It will not be able to it will not make sense for you to, understand even rest of the other topics in the next session also, right? And if you are coming from that background that you need to architect for a project, then this is very important for you. Okay. Anything else that I can assist you guys with? Developing applications with Google Cloud Path to take certificate test. Where can I find the practice test? So practice test and all, just hold on for that for module number 12, where we are going to discuss about certification. Okay. So if you have any questions on the existing module, then we can discuss that. But for any certification related stuff, just I would request you to park those, because I don't want you guys to start practicing directly on the module. First you understand and at least try out these things with me on every module. Once we understand all the modules, then we will have 5 days of gap, right? On the next Saturday, coming Saturday, on the module number 12, let's say, we will be we'll have 5 days of gap. So I'll let you know to revise all these modules, and then I will myself, I'll show you some sample questions. And since there will be a lot of websites where you can do the practice test and all, but since from the Edureka perspective, I cannot assure you that these will be right answers or wrong answers, right? So I can't take the responsibility of those websites. That's why I can't suggest you that okay, practice this one and you will be good to go. No, I can't do that way. Okay. I hope you understand my perspective as well from here. But yes, I have gathered some 30-40 questions which I will walk you through in the module number 12, and then that will help you to prepare your exams. Okay. Interview perspective. Interview perspective, you need to understand based on your role, right? So if you are a developer, you need to understand the developer tools, different other modules, right? Storage and processing module, the processing frameworks, GKEs and all those, depending upon your background, Siva. If you are coming from an architectural background, more questions will be on how do you set up this, how do you set up that, how do you connect on premise with this, how they will ask you how did you do in your projects, right? So that's where these concepts and this practice will help you to give them the answers in that perspective, right? So depending upon your basically your role, the interview will be different, right? So I can't take the interview questions over here because this is about the certification course. So we'll have to stick to that one. So I'll give you the sample questions from the certification perspective. I can't give you the interview questions. I hope you got my point, Shiva. uh, Anything else that I can assist you with, guys? So as usual, I'll be uploading this rough note as well, and I have already uploaded that particular homework demo. And as I said, you can go to the batch and you can find out the assignments. There are, I think, 2 assignments. If we have covered everything, if there is anything load balancer related in that assignment, just drop that one because we have not covered the load balancers yet, right? But assignments are there for the older sessions also if you have not uh, taken that up. Okay, so yep, that's about the homework and assignments, and rough notes I'm anyways going to give you. So anything else I can help you with? If not, just feel free to drop off. And yep, we can conclude 7 minutes before. Enjoy the day, and next week we'll see the load balancer and the other stuff related to load balancer. Okay. Anything else? I'm still waiting for 2-3 minutes. If anyone has any questions, if anyone wants to talk, I can unmute also. We have some time. If anyone wants to have a discussion directly, thanks for the session on the practice and homework will clear the confusion. That is absolutely correct, Shrey. We'll have to practice just by just by expecting everyone to be given by the instructor will not help you guys. Okay, so I keep on getting some or the other suggestions or that you provide this, we provide that, but my honest opinion is you need to practice as well. Okay, if I give you everything step by step, you will not you will not even explore the other things. So that's where I want you to guys try out, come with some doubts that okay, I tried this but I couldn't do that. We can do screen sharing also, that is also, I can stay back and I can help you out with screen sharing also, that I am okay with that as well. Sequence 2 of the module you are teaching, so we can know which module assignments we have to attempt. If you are talking about sequence, I mean it, if you can directly go to Edureka, your batch, right? And you already know that we are talking about networking. Earlier we were, in one of them we were talking about IAM. In one of the other one we were talking about compute engine, right? So the module names are same here. If you go to this particular module, right? This is managing GCP. This we have taken first and second in the same order. Then we have check the identity fundamentals. This is IAM. Then we have seen compute services where we covered the compute engines. Then now we are talking about the virtual networks. This is about the networking, right? So the sequence, I'm changing this sequence just because I want you guys to understand in a that particular way. It will be easy. Because I'm creating so many VMs, virtual machines. If I don't teach you what is compute engine, how it will make sense if I directly take the networking right on the third session. This is my personal opinion. That's why I don't take the same way that Edureka suggests. I don't take that in the same sequence. Anyone has any other doubts from any previous sessions also, we can take that up. Okay, I see no more new questions or any concerns. Any feedbacks, guys, you want to share about the speed, about the teaching? Because since we have time today, I'm just otherwise you can also provide the feedback anonymously. That is okay for me as well. Okay, thanks. I think yeah. I think yeah. Thanks, Shiva. Thank you, Shabi. Especially with rough notes. Yeah, thank you, Shiva. No, I mean that is okay. If any of the batch doesn't ask me, I don't provide. There is no harm if I give you those rough notes. Um, I understand. I mean, from the rough notes, we even can recall what we were discussing. So yes, rough notes helps in that perspective. Yes, very quick to recall. Yes, correct, exactly. Okay, anything else? Last call. Any other queries, concern? Anyone wants to share any thoughts? Okay. Otherwise, you can anonymously give me the feedback as well. That's fine. Okay. Then let's conclude and have a happy Sunday. Let's meet next Saturday with the rest of the networking concepts, and we'll conclude the networking, and then we'll move ahead with the rest of the modules. Okay. How many modules remains? So basically, I'm not exactly tied to these models, but right now, if I can tell you, one, two, four, five, and this is the fifth one we are discussing. Okay, this is the biggest module that we have, and let's say I'm not sure because I don't see this presentation. I don't do the screen, PPT reading, so I'm not sure in compute services. It might happen that it's not just compute engine or VMs related. It might be some other cloud run, cloud functions. If it is, then I'm covering that under other one. Okay, so application development. Here I'll be covering about Cloud Function, Cloud Run. So, but in one or the other module, I'll be covering everything. It's not that I'll be leaving any particular service. So, but if you understand this way from module perspective, we are on the fifth module. Basically, we are using discussing the third one, but from the sequence perspective, one, two, three, and this is the fifth module that we are discussing. So we'll be left with rest of the other modules. Okay, so I think that's all from my side. Okay, and then let's meet next Saturday. So enjoy and practice. Have a nice weekend and have a nice weekdays as well. Enjoy. Weeks, I'll be, this is the eighth session, right? So we'll be having four more, but after that, I'll have to stretch for one more weekend because I had started late, right? One weekend was taken up by another instructor. So, and for the sample questions, and I mean, apart from the 12 weeks program that Edureka has, Bharat, stretch a little bit more. I request you guys also stretch one weekend with me so that I can cover the examination perspective in a better way. That is not mandatory for me. Just the 12 sessions are mandatory, but I ask Edureka to say, set up one more weekend. Those who wants to attend, that is okay. It's all up to you guys, right? So, but I cover how I would appear for the, I also share my experience how I appeared for the certification, how I failed, how I then reappeared, how I prepared myself, what are the different channels, blogs I follow, all those things I share in that particular one. So just wait for that one, I would request. If you are tied to your schedule, Bharat, then it's all up to the participants. I can cover the things in that particular, 12 sessions, but for the rest one, the other one, the certification ones, I take up that in a separate one. Sure. Yeah, four you can say. Four more weekends. Yep. Okay. Then yeah, let's conclude for today and see you next Saturday, guys. Okay. Thank you. Bye.